Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to everyone joining us from overseas. My name is Brandon Ionata. I am the Director of Sales and Marketing for Struxsoft Solutions. And joining me today is Christina Brussesi, who is one of our technical sales specialists. And we're very excited today to introduce you and launch a brand new product for us, the first public offering of anything cloud-based which Struxsoft Solutions has developed. That product is called ONYX. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about this today and get through a demonstration which Christine is going to provide to you. At the end of that, providing we have a little bit of time left, we will be taking some questions. So you will see the ability to raise your hand. You could raise your hand at the end or at any point during the demonstration. And if we have time at the end, we will be more than happy to answer some of those questions live. So if we do that, please just make sure that your voice, so your microphone is working. You can test your microphone, I believe, using the dashboard side. If you have any other questions which you don't want to ask live, you can also ask them in the questions box. You can type them out, and we will do our best to get to those questions during the demonstration. If we do not get to them during the demonstration, we will absolutely email you and follow up with you afterwards. So without further ado, let's get into our demonstration of ONYX. I want to talk to you a little bit about basically what ONYX is and what problems it's trying to solve in the industry. So we have obviously been offering our CNC outputs from Revit for several years now with much success. We have many clients, both manufacturing using our CNC outputs on both wood and metal. And we're seeing that the production management of this is tedious, difficult, and fragmented. Dealing with hundreds of CSVs, corresponding shop drawings, communications between manufacturing and the design team is often very difficult. So now with the advent of cloud technology, we're able to offer a solution to help bridge this gap. So ONYX itself is a production management software, and it is linking Revit to the production team, basically, allowing managers to remotely or from within the same building basically have access to almost all the same data that the Revit user will have, but more importantly, allow for much easier scheduling and basically oversight of the CNC and production process. So what we're allowing for in ONYX is for the organization of our panels, organizing them into what we call roll orders, which are a collection of CNC outputs and work orders. Okay, we're also allowing something very new, which is the sorting of the members by component. So for instance, if we wanted to sort and output all members such as top or bottom tracks, we can sort that within the software and output a CNC file with only that information. And just while I'm doing this, just to remind you that today we're going to be focusing on light gauge steel manufacturing. However, we are currently adding wood functionality to this. And because this is a cloud software, our typical development cadence is quite accelerated. What we are able to do within ONYX is take the detailed information from Revit and access it per panel, in a viewable version. We have version histories. We can see what's been downloaded as far as CNC outputs are concerned, whether they be complete or partially. And we are also including the ability to assign unique QR codes or barcodes to the software. One of my favorite aspects of ONYX right now is our CNC editor. We're going to show you a lot of that coming up very soon, and this gives us a visual ability to access the panel, the CNC detailed CNC information from within it, which we currently weren't able really to do in Revit due to Revit limitations of size of file and so on. So within ONYX, we're able to see every dimple, every swage, every knockout, every punch, and we're able actually to visually change all of those things very easily, as well as see the CNC data next to it. So just very quickly to give you a kind of a brief overview of the workflow before we get into the demonstration. We do require that we start with a framed Revit model. Okay, we're not actually framing anything within the ONYX platform. And then we upload this information in part or in whole to Revit. So that's a big difference between some of the other Revit cloud software out there, or which we're able to basically take partial portions of a model and upload them to later kind of collate them together into one major model, or just work on those parts individually. From there, we're able to basically take the CNC information, edit it if necessary, output it, and basically manage and maintain an eye on what is going on during our production process. They can be downloaded directly to the machine if the machine is so enabled, or we can download them to the user's work space and then email them off, as we might typically do in most workflows today. So that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this over to Christina. Christina is going to first show you our model in Revit and then take you into the ONYX environment. So Christina, I'm just going to make you presenter.
All right. So thanks a lot, Brandon. Hey, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. So as Brandon mentioned, I'm going to start kind of with two simple projects in Revit, and then we'll jump straight into ONYX on the web. So I just have two basic projects today. One is specific to Howick. The other is going to be specific to Beck, and we'll get into both of those in ONYX. But the first thing I just want to point out is that when you first open up your Revit after you've installed the ONYX Upload Center, it's going to come in here as a separate tab like the other CNC output would, and you'll have all the available functionalities built into here. So the only really main one I'm going to show today is just the Upload Manager. So the Upload Manager, once you click on that, will come in as a little separate page over here. And this is what's going to create that connection between your Revit project and ONYX. So you'll log in, you'll sync it up to your ONYX project, which I'll show you where to create that, hit connect, and then that's what's going to create that bridge. So the next thing really to do after that is to upload the panels. And for today's purposes, obviously for time constraints, I've just kind of uploaded my entire project already, but it really only does take 2 to 3 seconds per panel to upload. And once everything's been uploaded, you'll actually have a visual marker in the Revit project as well. So the walls will turn bright red and you'll actually see that they've been locked. So this is going to prevent anybody on the Revit side from making any kind of modifications to it, from regenerating it. It's basically going to stay as is, and unless you forcibly unlock it, it's not going to change. So again, we've uploaded both projects. You can see everything here in bright red. And then the only thing really to do from this point is to actually launch the ONYX website, which will have a direct button in the ribbon. And that will bring you to the web page. So I'll start with just kind of the general ONYX settings. So we can see here, these are my ONYX projects that I've linked into my Revit model. But the first thing I really want to clarify is that even though I have one ONYX project per Revit project, they're not exclusive between the two. So you can actually have multiple Revit projects uploaded into one ONYX project. So for anyone who maybe breaks up their building into a few different Revit models just to make things smoother, they can all be uploaded to one ONYX project so it's completely cohesive. So the only main thing I really want to show you guys today that's a little different are the CNC machine settings. So like Brandon mentioned, we're going to focus on light gauge today. And for the moment, we have Howick and Beck, but we're obviously going to add many more machine types in the future. But the main thing I do want to bring up is that I've got machine settings for each type, but you can have multiple machine settings. So if you do have a few different roll formers, you can create those as individual settings. And then once you add in those new settings, it's really exactly the same workflow that you're used to in Revit. You go ahead, add in a new set of settings, give it a name, and then you can control the same machine options, the same wall operations, operation numbers, in this case for Beck. So you've got the exact same window that you guys are used to, just up here in the machine settings. So this is the main thing I wanted to bring up for the moment. We'll get into the manufacturing center a little later on. So let's dive right into one of the projects. The first one, let's just jump straight into this ONYX project here. And the first thing I'm going to bring up is this project viewer. So what the project viewer lets you do essentially is just load in all of your panels in your ONYX project. So you can see here that I've loaded in pretty much all my panels from all my different levels. And again, one thing I really want to reiterate is that you can upload multiple Revit projects and you can actually parse them together in this viewer. So the other nice thing that's actually pretty cool within this viewer is that initially the panels do come in as kind of these just generic objects, just to give you the constraints. But if you want to highlight everything and show parts, you can actually individually see the panels and you'll be able to see how they're broken down, really get into each individual member. And if I did want to do it project-wide, maybe let's go into the Beck one. Again, just for time, a bit smaller. You can grab everything, show parts, and you'll visually be able to see every single panel. So this is one use for this project viewer. Can see all these panels. The next thing that you can do in here as well is actually sequence them. So sequencing can be used for a few different options, but mainly if ever your panels do have to be rolled in a specific order, you can go ahead, come into this view and sequence them. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. Once they've been sequenced, they'll turn bright green. There's actually the sequence number in brackets right next to the panel label that you'll be able to see. Maybe let's sequence that interior guide too. So they'll all be listed here with the sequence number. And it'll basically be an additional filter that you can use to go ahead and organize your panels. So after you're done sequencing and you've viewed your project, the next idea I'm going to talk about is something called a work order. So work orders are pretty simple. It's just if you want to associate deadline dates to your panels. So let's say I want to create a work order for maybe my first floor. And these panels are going to have to be rolled tomorrow. I can go ahead and create that work order. Let's activate this guy here. And then you'll actually be able to associate panels to that work order. So I can go ahead, select maybe just 3 different panels. Let's add it to that work order. And they'll be visible down here. So the other main thing in this view really is that this is the first time we're looking at kind of the grid view, which is just how we're going to organize everything. So you'll see that it'll bring in the panel dimensions. It'll bring in the weight as well once you've got that in your families. And there'll be a few different ways to filter these. So you can choose which columns you want to see. You can filter if you only want the panels in a specific level, let's say. So you can use these filters, get your grids set up exactly how you want them. And then you could always go ahead and save this view. So it'll be the exact same thing every time you open up ONYX. The next thing I'll just highlight as well is that if you do have walls, floors, and ceiling panels, trusses as well, they'll be broken up in these individual tabs. All right, so that's pretty much the functionality for the work orders. The next thing we're going to bring up is the panel manager. And for this guy, I'm actually going to go ahead and switch to the ONYX project first, or the Howick project. So for this, we'll dive straight into the panel manager. Again, it's that same type of grid. So you'll have all the panels listed, and you could always filter these guys out however you like. But the panel manager is really the first option where we can go ahead and actually download the CNC. So I'm working in a Howick project now. So let's say I just want to download the output for 3 panels. I can go ahead and grab those, hit download CNC. It saves them to a zip file. And then it'll create the exact same Excel files that you're used to seeing. It'll save those all to a zip. For each individual panel. So this is really nothing new. We can do this per panel. But let's switch back over to that Beck project now. And this is the part that I really find cool, is that instead of actually outputting it per panel, you can even break it down by member. So if I just select maybe a few different panels on the Beck side, and maybe in this case, I only want to roll my top and bottom tracks. So again, I can just go ahead and put in the filters. So I can filter out the member types that I want to see. Let's go ahead and put contains, and I'll just put the letter T. So basically that filter, in this case, it's just going to give me everything with the word T. So it'll limit things, and I'll just sort it from my top and bottom tracks. So I can actually grab the individual members. They're all associated to different panels, and download a CNC for just those member types. Same thing, it'll send it to a zip file, and you'll be able to see all of your part numbers, your punches directly in here.
Christina, I have a question. What if we want to basically output CNC for everything of a certain gauge, or maybe everything on a certain level of our project? Are we able to do that, and are we able to batch process, multiple panels worth of CNC at a time?
Of course. So if ever you want to use by gauge, like Brandon mentioned, there's the options here for the filters. You can actually even drag and drop, and it can organize by column. So you can do this on the panel side, or you can do this on the member side, and you'll be able to roll for just those specific gauge sizes. So this is one way that we can go ahead and download the CNC directly in the panel manager. The next thing I'll show, which is probably my personal favorite, I find it pretty cool, is the actual CNC editor. So you'll notice that each of these panels are clickable. Probably saw it in the work orders. So you can actually go ahead and click on any one of these panels. It brings it to the panel page. So first step in this panel page just gives you kind of a summary of the panel. You even get your QR code in here. But what I find super cool and is my personal favorite, just because I'm pretty visual, is that you can go ahead and see your CNC editor directly on the web. So this has kind of replaced that CNC viewer that we had. So we can see all of our notches, all of our cuts. If I zoom in a little bit here, I've got my dimples.
So Christina, I don't need Revit to be able to look at this panel right now? No.
You can do everything on the web. Once it's been uploaded, there's really no need to go back into the Revit project.
So any type of web-enabled device will be able to give me this information?
Correct.
Awesome.
So you can even individually click on the members, go into the drop down over here. I can highlight each member individually, and then it even goes one step further and will show you all of the cuts and notches again that are on that individual member. So I'll be able to see all my dimples here. And the other thing as well, super cool, is this code viewer. So if you don't want to have to start downloading CNCs and running through your notepads, this will make it 10 times easier on your eyes. You can actually highlight individual members, and it'll highlight them here in the code viewer. So super cool feature.
That's awesome. So one of the other things that we are going to be offering very shortly is the ability, we have the ability manually now in this CNC editor to change connections of each of these members. But I know in the past, we've had a lot of clients ask us for the ability to very quickly, with one click, change member connections. So if, Christina zooms into a horizontal, maybe a horizontal on a Howick project, just because it
Sure.
impacts a few more connection details. So Christina is just going to jump over to a Howick panel. We'll let that load in. So you'll see, because ONYX is a single profile machine, every connecting member will need things like swages, cuts, lip cuts, and dimples, obviously. So now, for instance, what we'll be offering very shortly is the ability to simply click a connection, and with one click, reverse that connection. So instead of going from inner to outer, it can go from outer to inner, for instance. So in cases where you don't want to cut notches or lip cuts through maybe a king stud, now we can flip that connection to an inner connection and make those changes very quickly. And as we progress, we're going to be obviously adding more and more functionality. Now, one question that might be asked, having this type of functionality, is, well, does this information flow back to the Revit model? The type of edit that we're offering here does not impact the Revit model. It impacts what's happening on the CNC side. So this gives the CNC operator or the production manager the ultimate ability to decide what is going through their machine without having to go back to the Revit designer and ask for that change to be made. Sorry, Christina, you can go ahead.
Sure, no problem. So the only other thing I'll really wrap up now that we're on the ONYX side, besides the code viewer and obviously individually clicking the members, if you did even want to add any additional members, not members, notches or cuts, you can actually go ahead and just click on a member. If I wanted to put a web notch in this particular guy here, you can actually add this on the web. I can even move it. If I want to get a little bit more finite with it, I can put in an actual value. And this is something that when I go ahead and publish, will be directly sent to my output. So when I go ahead and download my CNC file again, it'll be available in that file. And last thing that I'll show in this CNC editor here, if you do want to go through maybe a few panels at a time without having to jump around through different windows and click, you can actually load them by work order. You'll get all the panels in here. And then you can jump from one panel to another, make your changes, publish them, and you're good to go. So super seamless, less clicking. You can just jump from one panel to another directly in the editor as well. So the last thing for today is this manufacturing center that I mentioned earlier. So once you do have a few role orders created, so you've created the work orders, you've outputted the CNC file, you've downloaded those, you can come to the manufacturing center here, and every time you download a CNC, so every time you click that button, it actually creates a role order. So it gets assigned a role order number, and you can see them all listed in your manufacturing center. So a few things I also want to point out in this window that are pretty cool. Your status will change to outdated if ever there's been any kind of changes. So if you download the file, then maybe you go back and realize, you know what, I want to go double check something in the CNC editor, maybe add in an extra notch somewhere. If it's been downloaded, the role order will appear as outdated. And if it's ready to be rolled, if everything's good, you'll have the status set to ready down here. And then you can click that if it's already been rolled and change your status. So an easy way just to keep tabs on all of your roll orders. So last thing, which is also super cool about this window here, is that let's say this is ready to roll. One of your machines randomly breaks down one day. you can always go ahead and change the machine settings. So even though I might have initially something set to a specific type of machine setting, if it's set to my second Howick machine, you can click on a roll order, click your machine type, assign it a new list of settings, so it runs to another machine, hit save, and then that'll let you go ahead and re-download your CNC. It'll update your roll order, and you can go ahead and bring that onto another machine. So I think that's it for me today, guys. Again, as Brandon mentioned earlier, if there's any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them now.
Absolutely. So if anybody has any questions they would like to ask live, please do. Just raise your hand in the the GoToWebinar box, and I will enable your microphone to ask that question. I see a question from Gregory. Gregory, your microphone is on. Go ahead.
Hi, how does the pricing work on this?
Sure, that's a great question. So pricing, what we are offering right now, because this is a basically a cloud tool, you're going to get more than one user with every ONYX license. So an ONYX license will come with an uploader. So basically the desktop version of the software, which allows you to upload your Revit model over to the cloud. And once on the cloud, one license comes with up to 3 cloud users. Those users do not need to have Revit to basically view, access, and edit this data. A previous question, I'm just going to mention it now, a previous question which I have been answering behind the scenes asked if there are kind of user levels. So can we lock out somebody from making a change to a panel? And the answer is yes. We can, through the user panel, set up kind of a view-only user, which allows the user to look at things but not touch, essentially. As far as pricing is going, this is an annual license, so it's going to be offered on a subscription basis. The subscription for this right now, you're looking at about $2,500 or just over $2,500 a year to maintain this license, or $249 a month billed annually.
Are there any plans for this to go into the wood world? I know this is roll forming, but
no, absolutely.
I'm more.
Great question. Sorry, Gregory. So as far as wood is concerned, we actually do have clients using this or a version of this live with wood as we speak. They've been in production with it for a little while, so it's kind of a bit of a, a test harness. As far as the first release of the public version, it will handle roll formers, but we will have wood available shortly. If you do have any wood needs, what I would suggest is instead of waiting for the public release to come out, we can have a discussion with you immediately and probably get you into a wood version a lot quicker if that's something that you're interested in.
Yeah, I was thinking about Vyman or Randek.
Mm-hmm. Yep, these things are definitely on the way. We've even worked on more kind of bespoke custom solutions as well. So definitely a lot of possibility and potential there. We're implementing things like routing, nailing, and so on. And this is all already kind of behind the scenes. If Christina goes to the panel view in one of our projects real quick, you will see there are already tabs there. Sorry, panel view.
The CNC editor, right?
No,
yeah.
right there. So you'll see under in members, you see there's already profile. So that's obviously our studs, sheathing, and hardware. So nails and so on. So these things are already kind of existing behind the scenes. They're just not exposed to the user immediately, just because once we get into things like sheathing and routing and nailing, there are so many different variances that need to be controlled that there is some interaction and some setup on our side that's needed. Things like CNC roll formers are a little bit more straightforward for us.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Thank you for the question. All right, let me just see if there's any other hands raised. I know there's a bunch of questions that have been coming through the written side. So let me just take a quick glance at those to see if there's anything that has been asked that we can answer real quick. So there was a question regarding the types of CNC roll formers that are being supported immediately. Immediately, we support Howick as well as the Knudsen roll former with the Beck output. We have a few others that we are actively working on now that should be released within weeks. Being a cloud software, the cadence of release is definitely a lot quicker. And what's really nice about this is this also eliminates the need for the user to have to download updates and do an uninstall, reinstall like we have to in MWF. So any new functionality will immediately be pushed to the web-enabled software. Excellent. So there's also a question asked about the machine code for printing. Yes, if there is printing needed in the CNC, then it can be added. It just wasn't in this particular demonstration. All right, let me just check one more time for any hands up. And I believe that's it. So if you do have any other questions regarding ONYX or any of other software, please feel free to reach out. You can always reach out to us, whether it be myself or the team in general. And just for an easy reach out, you can either contact us through our website by clicking on the Contact Us form, and you can add your message there. Or you can, pertaining to this webinar, you can reply to marketing@struxsoftSolutions.com, and we will send the email to the appropriate person in the organization to get that question answered for you. If there's any questions that have been asked in the chat that we didn't get to during the webinar, we will definitely reach out to you a little later on. Christina, that's it for me. If there's anything from you, or are you all done?
I think we're good for today.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Once again, we're very excited to announce this, so please don't hold back with any questions or emails regarding the software. Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a good day, everyone.